I work for Cambridge Enterprise, who are the Technology Transfer Office of the University of Cambridge. And our mission is to get university innovation and ideas out into society for the benefit of society, as well as the UK economy, the inventors and the university. Now this order is very important to us because all of the research in the university is predominantly funded by the public purse or charitable foundations. So we really do have a mission to get these ideas out for the benefit of primarily the UK society. So, how does this work with respect to drug discovery assets? Well, the thing with the university academic output is that drug discovery type assets are early. And when I say early, they are much earlier than anybody ever imagines. So they're often targets. Possibly validated, but that very much depends on your perception of validation. And sometimes we have a tool compound, which is always a good thing. But basically, they're very, very high risk. They're aspirational as opposed to investable. So what we are trying to achieve with our drug discovery efforts is to convert these assets from the aspirational assets to the investable assets. And effectively, what we need to do is de-risk them by moving them along the path of preclinical drug discovery. Now, this is not the comfort zone primarily of university principal investigators. They have a fantastically, deeply expert knowledge of biological systems, underlying biology, sometimes really good clinical insight because we had the benefit of a fantastic teaching hospital at the university. But what they don't really necessarily have the benefit of is the piece in the middle where the preclinical drug discovery actually goes from a target to actually demonstrate that it's valid, that it's druggable, to do the medicinal chemistry, whatever the approach is, or even actually to have the focus on that as a single ambition. Most of our PIs, they might have rounds at the hospital, they have lectures to give, they want to get an H paper, and what we're talking about here is actually a different focus, more of a sort of biotech drug discovery type focus. And for that we need appropriate project management, we need critical path activities, and it all needs to be milestone. And although this is nothing new in the concept of drug discovery, it actually is out of the comfort zone of much university research. So the way that we approach this, or one way that we approach this, up to now has been kind of ad hoc on a project by project basis. We have always asked for and we take advice from all kinds of different outfits. Some may be expert in medicinal chemistry, some may be experts in various therapeutic areas, but it's been very much on an ad hoc, case by case basis. And what we're doing now with taking up the tenancy in the SBC is to basically have a more coherent approach. Which the motivation for which is really the access to the integrated expertise of drug discovery and development that comes alongside the tenancy. We have generally found, across all of our drug discovery type efforts, that actually people are very helpful. They're very happy to help us, they're very happy to talk to us, and generally because we're seen pretty much as pre-competitive. And actually what people would like to see is they would like to see our assets progressed and de-risked, because they'd like to see whether or not they might like to see them again in the future. And they are potentially, everybody that we talk to across the pharma industry, potential licensees or potential investors in work going forward. So co-location with GSK experts to facilitate this access is absolutely the motivating factor for our projects, which we move down here. And that's us.
Are there any questions for the two hotspots before we move on? There's one here. Thank you.
Good morning, Rick Cousins in the seed at GSK. I just wondered if you could just describe a little bit more about how the facilitation of access to GSK experts will actually happen. Where is the matching going to take place?
Well, I think David Lee from Sinovo is going to talk in one of the breakout sessions this afternoon. But effectively, Sinovo are a group that work for GSK, but they are firewalled. Obviously, everyone needs to be quite careful, and they will if they could provide the therapeutic area expertise, or advise on CROs, or advise on project planning and drafting the funding proposals, they will do it themselves. And if they can't, and they can access back into GSK without any cross-contamination the appropriate information, or a person who can provide the appropriate information, then that is what they would intend to do. But it's a case-by-case basis, because that, obviously everyone needs to be very clear that no cross-contamination can occur.
The mic here. Oh, good.
Alison Campbell. Really interesting. Could you just tell us how you will choose the projects to locate here, and what exactly the location of projects means? Are you going to be physically moving folk down from Cambridge with them?
Okay, so the initial projects, and obviously it's always difficult for someone to be a first mover, are chosen on the basis of how amenable the PI is, because the guy needs to raise the funds, needs to choose to put people down there, and the rest of it. So, you know, there are more and less conservative, but they're a conservative body, PIs within the university. And actually, the first project we've got moving down here, the PI is fantastic. He's up for trying stuff. He understands that he doesn't really know a lot about drug discovery, but he's got the most fantastic project, and he really wants to see it work, and he thinks this is the way to do it, and he's totally up for it. And he's identified the person that will come down first, and he's been very involved and very engaged, and that's great. And to a certain extent, I need to identify people like this. Once projects come down and they're supported and they work, and you know what's not to like, then others will follow. But the first ones is always I guess the most difficult to move, because let's face it, in Cambridge everyone can cycle everywhere. So,
Good answer.